Welcome, everybody. I am so excited about today's conversation because we have an absolutely incredible guest with us. Imagine being told your heart is failing. 100% blocked artery, leaky valves, and an enlarged heart. Imagine facing the choice between major surgery or completely changing the way you live. What would you do? Paul, my guest tonight, was given the exact same choice. What he did next not only saved his life, but set him on a path to challenge the healthcare system and inspire thousands of others to take control of their health. His body started to heal. His cholesterol dropped from a staggering 347 to 100. He lost over 60 pounds and completely turned his life around, all without surgery. But that was just the beginning of his journey. Paul didn't fight for his own life. He saw the flaws in our health system and decided to do something about it. His mission became bigger than himself. Tonight, we get to hear his powerful story firsthand. Please help me welcome Paul. Thank you for being here.
No, it's a real pleasure and welcome everybody. Nice to see everybody. What a nice Zoom audience we have today.
Yes, and it's mixed between German and English-speaking people, so that's what makes it also very interesting because we have an international audience tonight.
Well, it's a wonderful thing. We at PBNSG are the largest international support organization, so it is not the first time, and hopefully not the last time I get to meet new people. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I really found very inspiring your work on PBSNG, and I am very happy to support you as well and be part of it. But let us start at the start. I have prepared a couple of questions, and anybody who has questions may jump in, write in the commentaries, and we want to be this very interactive session. But of course, we want to know more about your history, and if you remember what was your initial reaction when you were given the choice between a bypass surgery or a change in lifestyle.
Well, again, thank you so much for the kind introduction. And I really would like everyone to type in the chat any questions you may have. And I've got this down for about 15 minutes. Condensed version, but it expands every year. As I get older, I've been whole food, plant-based for 13 years. So now let me take you back, and this is going to take you back a while. When I was a very young man, when I was a young boy, between the ages of 10 and 13, my family was based on my dad and his three brothers. And in that 3-year period, my three uncles all needed bypass surgery. 2 of them died during the operation. My favorite uncle was never mentally the same after. And my father had quadruple bypass surgery. And he lived for another 14 years, but it was the only time I saw him cry. And I saw him cry for 4 days straight. And again, the surgeries have changed drastically since then, but that's the memory that I had as a young boy in my family, and my family was never the same. I will now fast forward about 35, 40 years. I'm a father of 3 sons. And at the age of 54, now I'm given my age, I went to a meeting at work and started feeling some discomfort in my chest and excused myself as I was profusely sweating, and I literally could not take 7 steps outside the office or the meeting room. And I just sat there for a while. And eventually, after, 5, 6, 7 minutes, it went away, and I moved on with my day. And from that moment on, for the next I don't know, 60 days. Every morning I would feel that same angina. And literally, it does feel like that elephant on your chest. And I would wait, pray, and it would go away. And I would go on with my day. And that would just continue and continue. And I kept thinking, one day I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to feel it. But it was just getting worse and worse. So I went to my general practitioner, and he heard a heart murmur that he had not heard before. And immediately he said, let's get you an appointment with a cardiologist in his group. The next day I went and I started doing all the tests, from ultrasound to echocardiograms, everything up to a heart catheter and a heart biopsy. And when I was done that day, the cardiologist, who was had been doing cardiology for 40 years, looked at me and he said, we still want to do a heart catheter and biopsy, but my experience is saying you need a new heart, or at the very least, immediate bypass surgery. So when that was told to me, it was time for me to really start to worry. The bypass I was worried about, but a heart transplant, that really caught my attention. On the way home, I had not, being a silly man that I am, I had never really shared this with my wife because I kept thinking it was going to go away. Okay. And to get to know me a little better is my whole life, whatever would ail me, I would just keep it to myself and hope it would go away. And I will share with you a few other examples of my silliness soon. So I stopped at my wife's office. I brought her into a conference room. I was explaining everything about what was going on. And after she, thunked me on the head and said, why didn't you tell me? She started crying. And at the same time, her boss walks in and says, what's going on? And she explained what I was dealing with. And he said to me, hold on, just stay there. And let me make a few calls. And I really believe that it's been divine intervention for me since I was discovered that I needed either a new heart or bypass. Because he came back in that office and he said, I got you an appointment with the Cleveland Clinic, which is the Heart Hospital of America. And he got it the day before I was supposed to go and get a heart catheter and biopsy at my local hospital. So here we were driving out to the Cleveland Clinic. And when you go in there, they talk about they haven't lost a patient in 1 year and, and surgery. And that it does feel pretty good. When I was there, by the way, the one big restaurant they had as you walked in was McDonald's. Since they don't have that any longer. I always thought that was kind of interesting. So I met my cardiologist for the very first time. They have hundreds of cardiologists, and they assigned me. And I usually, if I was at my other house, I would show you a card, and it would say basically he was the director of heart intervention, heart transplant. So basically, he was the head of their heart transplant group. And what was unique about the Cleveland Clinic is you spend the day and you do every single test until they discover what it is. So again, I went through all the EKGs, echocardiograms, 4G echoes, everything that you could think of, ultrasound, stress tests. But they also gave me a heart catheter. And when hopefully no one here has ever had a heart catheter. If you haven't, I will say that there are two choices. One's in the groin, one's in the wrist. I got to put in the wrist, and the recovery was half the time. So ask if it could be done in the wrist instead of the groin. And it's more scary than it is painful. So again, FYI for anybody who ever has to have it. And I also will share with everybody that it was the day I lost my humility as a man, because in prepping for the heart catheter, four stranger nurses came in and shaved me from my neck down. And I was on drugs at the time. I was on Demerol, heavy dose. So I'm watching this going on, and I'm just kind of laughing the whole time because I'm like, boy, I've been so prideful of myself. And within about 3 minutes, I was shaving and laughing. So, of course, I go on in, they do the heart catheter, and I'm in twilight. So they don't put you out, but they make you kind of loopy. And I hear my doctor in the background going, yes, yes, yes. I'm thinking, wow, how can anybody be happy and say yes while I'm having a heart catheter? Well, as it turned out, I did not need a heart transplant, but I did need immediate bypass surgery because my right artery was 100% blocked. Along with that, they discovered that I had an enlarged heart, I had leaky valves, I had scarsidosis of the right side of the aorta, I had a heart murmur, and a left bundle block. So, literally, I was a very hot mess. I had a lot of things bad going on. So they get me all prepped up for surgery, and now they're wheeling me in, and right at the door, he looks at me, this cardiologist I just met early that morning, and said, and this is the life-changing moment, would you consider a lifestyle change? And if you are willing to try it, because I've only offered it to one other person in 20 years, maybe you don't need surgery today. And like I was just thinking while I was on this gurney, and everyone's probably done this, I've done it way too many times. I was doing the old, hey, God, if you get me out of this one, I promise to serve you the rest of my life. Like many times I'd get into trouble and pray for God to get me out of a situation. And here was this guy saying to me, hey, would you be willing to make a change, a lifestyle change? I said yes so quickly, but I must admit in retrospect, I didn't know what it meant. What was the lifestyle change? To change my hair, have a different look. I didn't know what, I just said, yeah, I'll do it because I've got 3 sons. I didn't want to have the surgery. I was thinking of my dad and my uncles at that moment. So I'm in recovery and he comes up to me and he hands me his cell phone and he says, I want you to talk to somebody. So I'm got the phone, I'm listening, and it's Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And it turns out, so let me backtrack. Miracle 1, get into Cleveland Clinic. Miracle 2, I get assigned a cardiologist who understands the benefits of pills over pills and procedures and whose mentor was Caldwell Esselstyn in medical school. So here's Caldwell Esselstyn saying to me, and again, never knew who he was. He said, why don't you just go on home and I'll give you a call in the morning? I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So we finished recovery at 3 in the morning. 11 o'clock at night is when I finally got released. It took us 3.5 hours to drive home. Here I am at 4:30, 4 in the morning, finally going to sleep. And right at 8 o'clock, Dr. Esselstyn gives me a call. I'm like, what do you want? And we spent about an hour on the phone. And he said, go get my book, How to Reverse and Prevent Heart Disease. And then I want you to take it from there. So we spent about 45 minutes on the phone. That day, I get the book. I read the whole book. The following day, I go to the local grocery store and I become a label reading expert. I never realized that, all the foods that have bad things in them. And that was the last time I ate meat, dairy, and oil. But still, remember, I was still very sick. So what they decided to do for me is give me enough pills to literally knock me out for 60 days because they needed to shrink the heart being a muscle, and stop the valves from bleeding. So my life for the next 60 days was wake up, take pills, find something to eat, like usually my staple of like either oatmeal with fruit and soy milk. Some mornings I get a little crazy and I have kale salad with some Ezekiel bread. I know how to live. And that was my 60 days. But what was happening was all of a sudden is things started to change. Because you see, growing up, I never liked vegetables. I was not a vegetable person. I give my mom, who died very young, a credit for a lot of things, but I never gave her credit for those wax canned beans and peas. And my mom would sit there and say, hey, I got all night. And I'd look at her and I'd say, I got all night. I'm not eating this stuff. And eventually I would have some cold beans before I went to bed. She was stronger willed than I was. Maybe that's where I get it. I don't know. So I said to myself, I could do anything. I could do anything for 60 days, you know? So what was kind of really wild was about the 14th or 20th day, somewhere in between, the angina went away. So I wasn't waking up with that heart hurt. All of a sudden, the foods that I grew up never eating, the vegetables in general, they became more tolerable. My taste buds were changing. Then picture me, here I am. I weighed really about 70 pounds more. And all of a sudden, I was losing a lot of weight. So I continued this going on, but all that period of time, I kept saying, I gave a promise of giving back. What am I going to do? So I started reading and reading and learning. And then I realized that I wasn't a cook. Like you think back 13 years, there were like 3 cookbooks. That was it. And I wasn't a cook. So living a life of oatmeal and kale salad was never going to be enough. I couldn't make that jump of like eating to live instead of live to eat. I grew up living to eat. My life was centered around all my friends and family. Hey, what are you doing for breakfast? Hey, what are you doing for lunch? What are you doing for dinner? It was like that. The center was always the food. And the food, I was a workoutaholic. So to me, I would eat like I would stuff myself and then go run or work out or lift weights. I was very active every day. And I thought, I could just outwork a bad diet. No, you can't outwork a bad diet. Okay, I'm living proof. So I thought to myself, well, I got to go to a cooking class because I'm pathetic as a cook. So I went to the Esselstyn's cooking class, half day, $700. And I thought to myself, it better be a hell of a cooking class for $700 for a half day. It wasn't, but it did help. But on the way home, because they were in Cleveland, I was thinking to myself, this is what I'm going to do. I promised I'd give something back. So what I'm going to do is I am going to expense this $700 because why wouldn't our insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they'll gladly pay for it because a bypass surgery would cost about $100,000 to $120,000, and my receipt was $700. They denied it. I'm going like, that's it, my mission. I found my mission. So for the next, again, I was still convalescing at home, but I would start working my way up the chain of command, and there were 7 layers to the top of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I kept saying, well, we got to create a pay code. They kept saying the reason why they won't expense it is that you have to have a pay code to expense it for and with. And to do that, you have to work with the Michigan legislature. I live in Michigan. Well, if people don't know, Michigan's the second biggest dairy producer. I'm like, no, I'm not driving an hour and 45 minutes to work with the Michigan legislature who is not going to approve this. So that didn't work out too well. So then I thought to myself, okay, what can I give back? So I thought, you know what I'll do? I've changed my kitchen around. So literally, I gave up all the canned stuff, all the foods, and if they weren't fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grain, everything else was gone. And yes, I do have a lovely and very understanding wife because then we had sections. It was like her section and my section. Today, my beautiful wife, we still live in a house divided. Her family lives forever on fried food. It seems like they're from the deep south. So we don't cross swords on this one. Like I love her. I loved her before. I love her after. I love her now. We're not going into this. And I do all my own cooking. So I thought to myself, what I'll do is I'll put a little ad in the paper and I'll make the ad with something like, hi, I'm Paul. I'm just an average dude, average guy, but I was able to stop my cardiovascular issues and heart disease by making a lifestyle change. And I'd love to share it with you along with my remake of my kitchen. Within 2 days, I had 20 people signed up to come to my house that I never knew. I'm like, wow, this is something else. It's great. So I invited them over. I made them lunch, a plant-based, no oil lunch, and showed them everything, answered whatever questions I had. keep in mind, I was doing a deep dive about everything I could learn about nutrition because first I had to sell myself that I was going to actually live without meat and dairy and oil the rest of my life. It's a pretty tough sale for a guy who lives his life through food. So we had a great time. 20 people showed up. What I'm proud to say is 18 of them are still involved with the plant-based nutrition support group today. I haven't lost any of them, and they were older than me. So I said, well, I better do this again. But a month later, did it again. Another 20 people showed up I never met. And I'm like, whoa, I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm onto something. But they were asking a lot of medical questions, just like I was asking. I still ask a lot of medical questions. You don't want me as a patient, doctors. Anybody out there as a doctor? Bad patient, Paul, real bad. You better have your A game because I come with questions. So I thought to myself, I need to find a cardiologist, a lifestyle cardiologist. So I called up the heads of the hospitals. There's 3 big hospitals in the Michigan area. I asked for the head of cardiology. By the way, if you think it's easy to get return calls from the head of cardiology and your name is just average Paul, whoa. But I would leave messages like, I promise the rest of my life, I'm going to call you every single day until I die, unless you don't call me back. Like I just couldn't believe that. I kept calling and calling, and all I wanted is a name. Well, finally, all 3 of them gave in, and they sent me an email with 3 names. One name was repeated. It was Dr. Joel Kahn. Everyone's so kind that I can't see everybody, but the few people. Have you ever heard of Dr. Joel Kahn? Is anybody? All right. Well, he's America's heart hospital. He's America's heart doctor. That's his moniker. And he's in Michigan. And again, never heard of the guy in my life. I called him up. I went to his house. I didn't call the other doctors because I thought he would be perfect for what I wanted to do. Plus, he was working at Beaumont Hospital and said, let's do something at the hospital. So I was all for that. And it would be like he could answer questions and talk about the science. I could talk similar to what I'm talking about right now, kind of a real life story. And we had room for 80 people. And the first meeting we had was 122. So they were outside the hallway listening in. We said, wow, this is great. Let's do it again. Now, usually, you have the same type of meeting, you get less people. Now we even got more, 143 people. Everyone had to sign in. So I had 260 people on a list. We're ready for the third meeting. And 2 days before the meeting, the hospital calls me up and says, you can't meet here anymore. And I'm like, well, why? Because your group's gotten too big. And I'm like, wait, you got another auditorium. We'll move to the big one, the big auditorium. No, we can't do it. Why? Because back then they were promoting the standard American diet. So here I was with 260 names and 2 days to go find a place. I started calling churches, synagogues, schools, got into one school, which was centrally located, and they opened up their hearts to us. And to this day, I'm always grateful. And we've been having, up till COVID, live meetings every single month. And that was up to about 10 years. So in the meantime, just a couple of accomplishments or almost accomplishments. One time I got a call from General Motors. They wanted me to teach their retirees the benefits of nutrition. I was like, oh my God, this could change the world. So I actually got Dr. Furman and Dr. Barnard to work together with me. And we had this wonderful program. Then we had to present to Mary Barra, the head, and she said she could do it. So close to changing the world. Then I got a call from the medical school, Wayne State Medical School, the biggest medical school in America. And they said, listen, we want to add nutrition. Will you create a course for us on nutrition? I'm like, oh my God, once again, I get with Michael Greger and I get with Neil Bernard again. We create this beautiful, and 14 medical students who are part of the plant-based medical student group at the school. And we created this medical course material and they accepted it. And it was the first time that any medical school ever had a class about nutrition that was required. Now, here's the sad part. Since that day, 5-6 years ago, we've tried to market it to every other medical school and no one has accepted it. So a lot of closed opportunities to change the world, and it's made me kind of realize these type of activities are really one person at a time because the world's just not set up for this. So now we get COVID, okay? Love COVID. So we immediately, because the majority of our members are 50 and older, I remember that early in February that year, we had to shut down our live meetings and we went 100% virtual. And here we are today, all these years later, and we are now the largest virtual whole food plant-based support organization in the world. And we have 430 active members. We've got 11,000 members who get involved and could show up at our free events. And we are reached by over 300,000 people through all the social medias. And we continue to grow and grow. And our goal this year is that we have an activity for everyone every day. Right now, we've got about 16 activities. When I say activities, think about all the benefits of whole food plant-based. It could be diabetes, cancer, weight loss, heart disease, on and on. And we have a host and an expert, a nutritionist or a doctor who teaches the benefits of that modality every single month. We are also right now offering a free membership. Everyone likes the word free. And that's for 30 days to kind of test drive us out. And then it's a whopping $10 a month. So we make it very affordable because we need everyone here to tell their friends and family that if they just make a change, they don't have to be as crazy as I am, but if they're close to as crazy as I am, what they're going to do is all their bones will thank them. Your bones will thank you every day, and you'll be healthy. My cholesterol number today is 77. That's from 347. Okay, I've lost and kept about 60 to 70 pounds off, and I feel pretty wonderful at 67. But my story gets a little bit twisted because about 2.5 years ago, the angina came back. And I kept asking myself, like, how can this be? Dr. Esselstyn told me I was heart attack proof. Well, as it turns out, and this is something that I now would like everyone to get a pencil and paper, I'm going to give you 3 letters because I want everyone, because this is part of my new talk, but I want everyone to go check this out because I didn't know about it. Most doctors don't know about it. But as it turned out, I was born with a very high genetic lipoprotein little a. So all you have to write down is LP and a little a. And I want everyone here, the next time they go to their doctors, or if there's something that isn't right today, to have it checked out. You could get a lipid panel done. In America, it's about $35. I don't know what it is in Germany, but you're worth it. So do it. Okay. Now, as it turned out, you're born with that number. So at 2 years old, my number was 357. What number should it be? Less than 50. Well, it's no wonder why I was having angina again. Now, I wasn't too happy about this. I will admit to everybody, I was a little depressed. I'm like, God, I did everything. I changed my trajectory of my family, myself, everyone around me. I work 80 hours a week endlessly to spread this message. And here I am. I needed to get a stent. As it turned out, my LAD was at 99% blockage. I was really close. And it's funny, that stubborn gene in me didn't stop because I wanted so badly to get back to the Cleveland Clinic, but it took time to arrange the right team to take a look at me. And if I would have waited a few more weeks, we might not be on this call right now. I am a stubborn little coot. So I want everyone, if they would kindly, to go check out your LP little a number. And let me just let you know a few things about it real quickly, because again, I like learning. First of all, the LP little a really is like a secondary plaque factory. What you're born with is what you usually have. There is no known, like right now, you could take Repatha, Lipitor, Zocor. There's a whole bunch of drugs that you could take to lower your statin number. There is nothing for LP little a, but help is on the way. So I got invited to be part of a phase 3 study with one of 3 drug companies that are testing LP little a. And you know about American drug companies. The second they sniff some money that they can make, they're working hard. So there's 3 big companies working on it. I'm involved in one of the 3. So every 3 months, I get a shot. They take about a gallon of blood out of me and do all this testing. And this continues for 3 years. So I'm 2 years into the 3-year testing period. And I either got the placebo or I got the actual drug. In the phase 2 studies for this drug that 3 companies are doing, they've seen a lowering of between 70 and 90% of your number. So in the organization or the drug company I'm working with in phase 2, they saw a 90% drop. So if we do the math, I'm at 350, I drop at 90%, I will be way under 50 and will be, again, heart attack proof. Do I have a placebo? Do I not? Time will tell. Okay, time will tell. But if for some reason you find out your number's too high, I want you to email me, which is Paul at, it's Paul at P as in Paul, B as in boy, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, G as in girl.org. And Suzanne, if you could put that in the chat, I appreciate that. Send me an email and I will send you the only thing I know that will help lower the LP little a. And what that is a big cocktail of supplements. Now, I believe in eating food and not taking supplements wherever I can, minus the B12. Now, whether you take EPA, DHA, whether you take a vitamin D because there's not enough sun, I mean, that's really up to you. And, you should know through a lipid panel what your levels are. But this is like 16 to 18 supplements, and it's not like 18 different ones. It's take like 6 pills of niacin. Warning, if you take niacin, boy, that's a wake-up call. That'll take you from like this to like every inch of your body, like it's prickly and falling asleep. Some people hate it. I kind of liked it. It was kind of a weird feeling, but to each his own. And they make tingle-free niacin. But you can take proline and lysine. There's a whole bunch of drugs that you take in unison twice a day. And I will say that I did that so I could write about it. And I did it for a year. And it took my number of 360, 357. It brought it down to 203, which is great, but it wasn't under 50. And I'm hoping this drug will allow that to happen. So please just look into that for yourself, for your family. So right now, as I said, the plant-based nutrition support group, we're thinking, by the way, here's this first, never told anybody this, we're playing around with an idea of changing the name to plant-based support. Just it. And it would be like something, we'll come up with a tagline, but it has to do with education and empowering you to take control of your own life. All right, so that's kind of, I think, my story. I probably forgot some things along the way, but I'm proud to say that, plant-based nutrition helped improve and save my life. I promised God I would give back, and I kept my promise. Now I got a new promise. My wife keeps saying, you can't work this hard every single day. So now we have date night, and because, I get calls, and when I get calls, I want to help people. I was so lucky. 13 years ago that somebody reached out to me. So today I'm reaching out to all of you, and I want to thank you for listening. And I want any questions. There's no time limit. I'm yours. Okay. So if there's any questions, let's start talking.
Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your a very inspiring story. And I do agree. I've been sending out so many emails, and I'm not stopping because I want to interview as many people as I can in the plant-based movement. And here in Europe, it's not known at all. I have to fight with my client, with their physician, because there are oh no, it's not possible to change your numbers and to get rid of the medication because once you are on the medication, your whole life on medication. So that's where we are in Germany and in Europe. It's a very, very hard fight. And when I wrote to you the email, I remember I was in Florida at that time, and you answered on the same day. It never happened with no contact. I wrote to. It was like, what? That's not possible. And I know we connected already in November when I was there. We talked the first time together, and I'm really happy to have you here tonight. And I have a couple of questions because some of my clients just sent me a question in advance because I had to translate it to English. And the first question, if you look back to the moment where you switched to plant-based food and you said nobody in your family, not even your wife, is eating the same way. And like there is something we say if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. So first thing, get rid of junk food because it's gonna make your life much more easier, but you still manage to do it. So if you had to give like the 3 top tips to my audience, what would that be?
Yeah, one of our groups is how to live in an omnivore world, so like a house divided. So I get that. My tips would be simply, okay, so I believe in you control your own life. Like before there was my beautiful, loving wife of 25 years, there was me. Okay? And I can't be good to anybody if I'm not good to myself to start. Okay? And just might even sound a little selfish, but if I can't be the best version of me, how can I be a great grandfather and a great father and a great husband? So no matter what, I just feel as if when you know something's right, which is eating meat is not good. Now you could not eat meat for health reasons or animal rights reasons, whatever the reason. Dairy is not good for you, and oil, what do they say? That's 400 calories a tablespoon. I mean, it's just no wonder why people, I couldn't believe that oil with like 10 or 15 different names to it. So they sneak it in. And in America, if it's less than 1% of an ingredient, they don't have to even post it. But it's no wonder why, the America's so fat. I mean, it's in everything. So my first little thing is, listen, it's like you don't cross the street when the traffic's going, right? Because it's not a good thing to do. Same goes with your food. It's like, like I tell myself, yeah, what's funny? The control that food has is just amazing because I could still remember that pizza and how it tasted. Now I make a version of it, not even close to what I remember. But the point is that my health and me are more important. So just stay true to yourself. Okay, number one. So number one. Number two, I would always say to people that, have a little travel bag with you. So in my car, I have, some whole wheat crackers, whole grain crackers. If I'm traveling, like if I'm driving that day, the night before, you gotta prep, okay? So my big thing is batch cook everything you can. Try to keep it simple because I don't have hours to cook all these elaborate foods that you see all these great chefs do. If you want a great cookbook, here's a little salesmanship. Go on to my website. Perfectly Plant-Based is our cookbook, no oil cookbook. Enjoy that. That being said, I have something in my trunk. It's always the same. It is, like a variety of different fruits and vegetables, and I take it with me. I've got a new thing I'm going to share with everybody. Get a pen ready. A recipe coming up, brand new, and I am the simple cook. So here's what I do. I take edamame, a bag. I take garbanzo beans, but you could have any beans you want. I like garbanzo beans. I mix them together. Then I take every vegetable I like. For me, it could be carrots, celery, cucumbers, onions, peppers, and on, whatever you like. Cut it up, put them all together, take a teaspoon of Bragg's amino and swirl it around, And that to me is such a cornucopia of great vegetables. I take that with me in my little cooler.
We
I
don't
always
have
have,
Brexamino in Germany.
you
That's the
don't?
that's the hard stuff. We don't have all these fancy
Well, but you know what you could do? You could take like a light
yeah,
soy sauce
yeah,
and water it down.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm like the king of exchanges. If you have something, I could dummy it down, but it won't ever taste the same. Like when they try to sell me on nutritional yeast, tastes like cheese. I don't know about
yeah,
that,
well,
but it's close. I mean, it's close. My point being is that always have something, and I always bring salad dressing with me no matter where I go.
yeah,
Always have salad dressing. And guess what I learned? You might miss a meal. Boo-hoo. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're whole food plant-based, there's a lot of things you're going to give up. And one of them is you may not make every single meal. Now, when you go out, just make sure that you call ahead when you can, talk to the owner of the restaurant, explain the story, look at his menu or her menu, and say, hey, listen, you got baked potatoes, but you spray a little oil on it to make them look pretty. Hey, you got broccoli. Could you spray, you ask questions, but, most places want to take your money, so they will find a way to work with you. And sometimes they'll even let you bring your own food in.
yeah.
But the little tricks of the trade are just simply, being true to yourself and being prepared. That's the big change is that now I have to plan ahead every night before I go to bed. Okay, what am I going to have the next day? How am I going to get through that day? So,
Yeah, perfect.
yeah.
I remember I had a lot of question because when I went out for dinner first here in Europe, I never thought, oh, I could call the restaurant in advance and tell them, well, I have a health condition and could you please cook like this and that? Because I was too shy and I was like, like, what will they think and what will they say? Meanwhile, I do that all the time. And they
Yeah.
are pretty happy to try. And the last time I did that in a hotel, the woman welcomed us in the room and it was full, full of people. And she said, oh, you are the vegan people.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. Oh yeah. Again, it's interesting. You get together with people and you're the only one while they're eating whatever, you're sitting there, having your salad. But it always kind of like, I don't like it always being centered on what I'm eating when I'm out with people I don't really know. But eventually they always say, well, tell me, how you doing this? And it just gives me an opportunity to kind of just tell the story quickly and just explain that, we are not carnivores. We were never meant to eat this food, and if your taste buds could change like mine, do I absolutely fall in love with fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains? I don't love it. I don't love it, but I love how I feel.
Yeah.
I love how I feel. And to me, that beats anything right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because lots of comment I get when I talk about this with people is, well, first you have like the two kind of people. The people like you where you have like, okay, it's like a very serious situation. You're like, no, a heart transplant or a bypass surgery is not a small thing. So basically you'd have to take action. But lots of people are on medication, on high blood pressure medication, on statins, on many different because one brings the other. But they have like no really felt a side effect, like they feel okay. And it's for them a too big of a jump to say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice everything I love. What am I going to eat? So I'm sure you have many of these people in your support group. How do you go along with this kind of
Yeah,
argument?
I mean, why it's always interesting. It seems like a lot of people join the organization as a latch ditch effort before something crazy radical happens. So it's like, hey, my A1C is over 10. I'm on metformin. They're saying that if I don't get things under control, I could lose a leg or a toe. Well, I'll go whole food plant-based,
Yeah,
right? Or there's certain cancers. Like, I don't want to go through all this chemotherapy and radiation. Okay, I'll try plant-based. And for me, it was heart disease. It was like, yeah, you need bypass. I still have 100% block in my right artery. It's not, it's always going to be that way. But it took me being on the gurney at the door saying, okay, I'll change, even though I didn't know what it meant. But, as I look back, it's like That's where we get a lot of people. And, if someone's on statins and blood pressure medication, I get what you're saying. That's a really good question. I mean, they kind of body gets used to it. Now, I don't know what the cost is for this, but there's a cost to it. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I don't want to take drugs. Like, I really don't want to. Like, I would like not to. So anytime I could kind of give up a drug for a fruit or a vegetable, I get that. That's my goal. That is my goal. But yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people who have no problem, taking on 6, 7, 8 pills. But I always ask the question of, come on, if you're taking that many pills, are you really feeling great every day? Like, how can you? I always used to think that, like, if you take like right now, just open. I'm on a cholesterol lowering drug called Repatha. Now, I tried doing it without. My cholesterol number stayed steady at about 170, and in a lot of cases, people were saying that's pretty good. Dr. Esselstyn would tell me, hey, I don't care what your number is. But my cardiologist says, if you take the Repatha in unison with plant-based, we got your number, your LDL, down to 43. Kind of tough to argue with that when I'm not feeling any ill effects of the Repatha. That's, by the way, an injectable twice a month injection into my stomach. It's like getting a pinch for 10 seconds. It doesn't really hurt. I was on Zocor. I was on Lipitor. I did get the side effects. The side effects were just ugly because I could barely walk. But once I got off the drug for 3 days, I was fine again because they do have side effects. And did I just say side effects? Like, really, you're on 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 pills and you're not getting the side effects? And I would always ask my pharmacist or my doctor, okay, you got me in all these drugs. How do those drugs intermix?
Yeah.
Again, I just would question if you're on 3 to 5 or 6, 7 drugs, it's kind of tough to make me believe that you're just fine. You're just dandy. You just take your pills and enjoy your life. It's too much for me to believe. So I just think the goal here is to live your best life. And the way to do it is as natural as possible. And I'm a poster child. I'm 67 years old. I weigh 166 pounds. I rode my bike yesterday for 22 miles. The day before, I lifted for an hour. I feel great. My recovery is phenomenal every day. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. But I'm still 67. I do feel things, but my recovery is really good. And when I'm around the people I love and my peers and friends who are around my age, it's difficult to listen to it sometimes because it's this hurts, that hurts, this is what I'm on, this is the next procedure, this is what I got. And they look at me and I'm like, come on, boys, my buddies I grew up with, look at me. I'm on one drug. That's it. I feel great every day. But they won't do it. But I love them. So that's their life, their choice.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't force anybody into a change. That's for sure. It doesn't.
But I challenge everybody in Germany. Okay, I'm looking at all you guys saying everybody in Germany. This is pretty funny. All right. Try it. If you're not whole food plant-based right now, I always say, you'll see the 21-day jump starts. Everyone's got a 21-day jump start. Great, 21 days. You know what happens on the 20th day? They start thinking about what bad food they're going to eat on the 21st day.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm saying that when I'm about ready, and this year I'm going to launch PBNSG's Jumpstart, and it's 21 days. Okay, hypocrite, but I got to get people to try it somehow. My thing would be 60-day challenge. Mm-hmm. You could do anything for 60 days if you had to. If you had to. And here's what would happen. I'd want you to get a blood test. Okay, weigh yourself, get a blood test, go 60 days whole food plant-based. And in 60 days, I promise you, I don't promise many things, I promise that you'll have lost 15 to 20 pounds in just 60 days. And your numbers will drop dramatically, and you'll probably be able to get rid of some of those pills. That's just in 60 days. Think about doing it for the rest of your life. So it's easier said than done. But if I could do it, anybody could do it because I'm nobody special.
Absolutely. And we have lots of example here in the audience who are on their way, have already done it or are doing it. And it's amazing the change we can see. And I'm sure if you, because you have this LPA, which is a genetic marker, and like everybody, and I still have lots of problem, even though I spent 6 hours on a workshop explaining the causes of heart disease and high blood pressure. And then I get to talk with many beautiful people on the phone after the workshop, and they still come back with the explanation. Well, I'm sure it's genetic because my doctor told me it's genetic, and my mom had it, and my dad had it, and my grandpa had it, and we can't do anything against it. So it's so driven in the head of the people. So even though they say, oh yeah, everything makes sense, what you say, oh yeah, it's really, I see the picture, I see the explanation, and 2 days later, it's just like, I'm sure it's genetic.
Yeah, well, I think you and I need to have an hour-long discussion so I could get you to accept the world you live in. And I'll be glad to do that. You know that, just to kind of even things out because I've been doing this a long time and it's frustrating because it's difficult. Okay, so in the crazy Paul world, and I think crazy thoughts. I want to do a class action suit to all medical schools and all doctors.
Yeah.
Because when a doctor says to me, hey, they didn't teach it in school, or, whatever their excuse is, hey, just here, I'll give you a pill. To me, like, I believe in your word. And the word is you signed a Hippocratic oath to do no harm to your patients. And then a doctor will say something, I'll say, then go explain me. Explain me at 235 pounds, a cholesterol number of, like skyrocketing high, who needed bypass surgery. Explain that. And all I did is make a lifestyle change. And why aren't you telling every patient? That's why you see nutrition before pills or procedures. Thank God we have some procedures. Thank God we have some pills. Thank God. But try it nutritionally first. Your body will thank you in the long run.
Yeah.
But Suzanne, anytime you want to give me a call, I'll get you off that ledge because it's like it's like here's my little hint just to you that I'll share with everybody. You're like Moses, okay? What did Moses do? Moses built the foundation but never saw the promised land. That's what I tell myself every single day. My goal is to get, we've got a whole new group of part-time employees and people who are running PBNSG other than me. And when you join us and you get to meet them, everyone is in their 30s and 40s because that's the future.
Yeah.
That is the future. So I can't do it at 67, So my look at it like my purpose is to build the foundation, which is PBNSG, and talking to individuals as often as I can, as quick as I can, and then hand it off to people who care as much as I do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what makes me mad is we definitely have to have this call. There is a cardiologist here in Germany who is also coaching people to get partly rid of medication. And when you go on his website, you see names of pharmaceutical industry selling statins. And he tells in every speech he does that it's perfectly okay to eat fish and meat sometimes a couple of weeks, and you just take statin as a prevention. What hits you?
I mean, listen, again, I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm battle tested. I've seen it all. I've had, I, here's one for you. So everyone knows who Whole Foods Market is, right?
No, in Germany, not. It's
Okay. Well,
yeah.
John Mackey owns Whole Food Market, and he called me up and he says, I want to do your program around the world. And he had the money. The key is always, with anything is you got to have support and money.
Yeah.
Again, one of those close calls. But I guess my big point is always the same, which is you could either sell to the masses because, people will attract to a doctor. He's got the title saying, hey, a little bit of pills, a little bit of that. Maybe he's making money on the pills and the selling of it on his website, whatever the reason. But the truth is, and the science has not changed in 13 years. that I know of. And that's why, it's like it hasn't changed. So just try whole food plant-based. And the problem here is very few restaurants, difficult to travel. It's not, at 13 years later, I thought there'd be a whole bunch of restaurants or traveling would be a breeze. It's so difficult. It really is. But on the flip side, you bring your travel pack every day and you remember when you're hiking that mountain or riding that bike that if you had heart issues, diabetes issues, you wouldn't be able to see what you're seeing and enjoy what you're enjoying. But it's tough. I do understand. It still is tough for me. It really is.
Yes. And do you have like one history of someone you met in your whole experience you have now with helping people on this journey? Because also we hear a lot of time, oh, I'm too old for that, or I'm too old for that, to making this change. So maybe you have some examples of people who just flip the coin even at high ages.
Well, it's funny you say this. I'm guaranteeing a little smile from everybody. I ran into a guy just the other day, 92 years old, and he comes to my meeting because we're starting to do a little bit of live meetings. He says, Paul, I've been waiting to meet you since COVID, but I'm 92 years old and I want to be plant-based. And this guy looked great. I said, well, tell me, what do you eat? And he started listing it off, and he's 92. I said, keep eating it. You're doing just fine. You're just like it wasn't going to change. I said, just eat more fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains. Just eat more of them. But anything else, just stick with it, I think that I think everyone should try it. I don't have I could tell you stories. I'd like to share something with everybody that I find interesting, which is about 2 years ago, I write open letters. And I write the open letters because it's cathartic to me. I could be random. I could share whatever feelings I may have personally, professionally with everybody. And it seems to people like it because, like I said, I don't have any initials after my name. Okay, I always say I'm just a dude who got saved, who made a promise, and has got an understanding wife. That's my story. That's it right there. So I wrote this open letter saying, well, it doesn't help that medical schools aren't teaching it. It doesn't help that hospitals aren't feeding their patients it. It's tough to travel, as I mentioned. It's tough to go to dinners and all that stuff. But we have to own it. The plant-based people have to own it as well. Meaning, I'm frustrated that the people at the very, very top, which we know you've heard of, the Esselstyns, the Campbells, John McDougall, rest his soul, the Gregors, the Furmans, the Barnards, and there's about 4 or 5 more people I could add to that list. But each one is doing very well individually. They got their followings, they got their books, they got their sponsors, they got their money. But when you look at that next tier of, let's say, numbers 20 through 100, people like myself, Suzanne, who are spreading the word, working endlessly, why aren't the people at the very top working together as one? Why aren't we all? Because the plant-based world is, when they say, oh, it's a movement. I always take exception to the word movement. It's not a movement. We are like 1% of 1% of 1%. We're so small. We're really small. Okay. Now, if we were a vegan organization, we could say, hey, it's 4 or 5% of the world population, and that might be true. But when you're whole food, plant-based, no oil, you're 1% of 1%. So yes. I came up with something called the Sage Circle Alliance. You can look that up, www.sca.org, sca.org. And I said out loud, I need a partner. I got a partner in Merrill Fury out of Chicago, and we created the Sage Circle Alliance, which is an organization. Think about it's like an association or alliance or co-op. It's where people from 15 to 100, all the organizations who work independently could now work together as one, share resources, share ideas. Now, it started out great. Now it's kind of steadied. it's a nice word for not flatlined. It hasn't flatlined, but it's steady. But even the people at the very top, only a couple of them signed up. Only a couple. Like, I would personally call, like Dr. Esselstyn signed up to be part of it. Dr. Furman signed up. Dr. Clapper signed up. But the rest of them said, nah, I'm good. I don't need, And I'm like, wait a second. We're promoting everything you do in books. And like, we should all be working together.
Mm-hmm.
So while I could point fingers at the establishment, and I do, we have to look in the mirror before we do that and say, if everyone were working together, we'd all benefit. So Suzanne, you're not alone with those feelings. Like, I feel that same way. I really do. But that's where Moses comes in. And I have to remind myself that someone's got to build it. I'm the guy, you're the lady who's going to help build it. And then we're going to pass it to somebody that might make, and I tell people, it's what scares me. It's like, it's almost going to have to be something cataclysmic for people to stop eating animals. Hey, listen, I loved eating my steaks. I did. I get it. I totally get it. But it's not sustainable in the next 100 years. It just isn't. And, the dairy, I mean, like, we're the only, animal that drinks another animal's milk? That's kind of weird. But, I mean, I love milk. I loved it. Milk.
I love cheese. I love cheese for everything.
I'll end this with a funny little cheese story. But I mean, you put chocolate in milk, and oh my God, it tastes great, right? It's called chocolate milk. I loved it. It was what I'd have every day. And then cheese. My first job out of college, I was a regional director for the Land O'Lakes Butter Company. So can you imagine? Every Friday was a 5-block chunk of cheddar, and on Monday I had to get a new block. I love cheese. I love cheese. All right. But the point is that this stuff's unsustainable long term. And what scares me is that, like, for the world to recognize that, what is it got to take, a Cat 10 hurricane or the glaciers to melt? Like, it's going to have to be something so big where everyone, just like we did with COVID, everyone puts aside the politics and says, oh my God, something's going on with the world. We need to save it because it's serious. And then all of a sudden we start eating plant-based.
Absolutely.
That's what scares me. I think that's what's going to have to happen. I won't be around probably, but I'm just saying that we gotta make changes. We can't wait much longer.
Absolutely, I agree. When we see what keeps happening with,
but I stay out of the politics. By the way, everybody,
I do.
I stay out of politics. I learned my lesson the hard way when I once donated to a cause, and half my group said, "Oh, I love you, Paul. What a great idea." The other half said, "I'm leaving." So. We are an educational organization only, and if anybody wants to know my true feelings, you could email me, and I probably won't tell you. But we're a educational health organization. That's it. Crazy time. Crazy time.
I will just put the email address of the plant-based NSG.org, right? If anybody want to have a look at it, because you have also lots of recipe, everything in English, of course, but such good.
Is there any other questions that people may have?
Definitely, open your mic if you want and ask your questions. Feel free to ask a question if you have some.
If you don't ask questions, that means I did a great job of my story. I shared a great story.
Absolutely, you did. I'm just looking at some of the questions I received, but you covered most of it. So, yes. You talked about cheese, and one of the comments I also get sometimes is, like, I feel crap and you want to take away the thing that makes me feel good, like comfort food. And I used to say the same thing. Before I had my heart issue, I was like, all these extreme people, like vegans and things. I was like, my dad always said everything in alles im Maß in German. So a little bit of everything.
Everything in moderation, right?
Exactly. Kills, as Esselstyn says very well, but my dad used to say that, and I grew up like this, and I always said, well, like, I eat healthy food. I cannot imagine having a dinner without a red wine. To dinner, there is always cheese, and I have a second stomach for a sweet after that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Swiss, so I used to have fondue. I could have fondue for lunch and raclette, which is melted cheese on potatoes for the evening. No problem. But as you said, the way I feel today is undis you know, like you cannot describe it. It's just like we spent a week in Florida with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he said, well, when people are going to ask you how it is to do 1 week of intense meditation, you're going to say like, you know, like it's as if you were asked how does a mango taste. You just cannot describe it. And it's the same I feel now. It's just like I never thought, and I was like, you know, like I used to do sport. I never was overweight. I felt good all my life, but I never thought I could feel as good as I feel now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I just share the story of my friends my age. There's a lot of, they're hurting. They're hurting.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just listen to them because I love them.
yeah,
But I don't feel that way most days. I mean, you get older, you're gonna feel something because I kind of abused myself growing up. But I'm thankful. I'm very thankful that I learned about this in time. And like you, I'm glad that I have an audience like this to share it with.
yeah. And if it wasn't for the LPA you were born with, which was really high, you probably wouldn't even be on any kind of medication because you managed to
Yeah,
hold it for so many
that
years.
was a curveball. I mean, I had to put my head around that one for a while
Yeah,
because I mean, honestly, I was like, that threw me because no doctor told me about it. And it was like, whoa, one day I was like, whoa, this is a bad reminder. What's going on?
mm,
And then it was discovered that I just needed to get a stent and I didn't want anything in me. But, you know, who says life's fair sometimes?
yeah,
It can't always be fair. Can't always have it your way.
yeah.
So we just move on and smile. That's all. Yeah. Well, thank you. If anybody has any questions, you could email me. You've got my information. If you
Absolutely.
enjoyed me today, I would gladly come back. I love this conversation, and I want to wish everybody just health. Just good health, good life.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Paul, and enjoy the nice weather in Florida. Are you still
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I'm still here, and today was the first rainy day in 30 days.
Oh,
So it's been a batch cook. Like, it's funny. I lived my whole life for that one bad day because that way I could batch cook. Like, I've been cooking today from 5 o'clock in the morning to this moment. And, it's like, I wish, again, still not my biggest mistake as a cook is like serving sizes. Like, I have
yeah.
to wash so many dishes because I choose the wrong pan or choose the wrong, and but when I have the opportunity to do bulk cooking, I'm so happy because today I made barley soup and I have 12 servings. So I've got 12 meals that I don't have to worry about it. And they're all, 11 of them are in the freezer right now. So batch cook, batch cook, batch cook. I'm the king of batch cooking. I just simple batch cooking.
It
Um,
does. It's really.
you guys, thank you so much. Suzanne, anytime. I mean that
Yes,
sincerely.
I
And
will.
God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye
Bye.
bye, everybody. Thanks.